Welcome to Filmfest Hamburg, welcome to the German premiere of Whether the Weather is Fine, and also welcome CARLO Francisco Manatad, the director of the film, who's joining us today.
Thank you for having me in this prestigious festival of yours. It really means a lot to show the film to a much wider audience.
Could you please tell us a bit about the story, about the background of it all, the typhoon in 2013, and how you decided to make a film out of it?
So the film is actually loosely based on my experience when I was in Manila, and I was based in Manila, and all of my family were in Tacloban. So the typhoon happened. I didn't have, like, usually in my hometown, we're used to all these kinds of typhoon. Like when I was growing up, I would go to school with the flood here, just walking. It was normal for us. So I mean, it's quite funny, but and also absurd. But the situation has always been normal for us, to the point that when we had like this news that another typhoon was coming, it was practically normal for us. So when this happened, and suddenly, like a few hours after, you see all these images in the news that people were dying, and this, it was quite absurd for me, to say the least, because, like, what the fuck, this is how I lived all throughout my life in my hometown, but this certain thing happened. So I went back to my hometown, tried finding my family, to the point that, because when you see all these things and the news and like the images, there's something that ingrained in you. So I programmed my mind that, for me not to, like, how to say, expect too much. It was programmed in my mind that everyone in my family was dead. It's quite sad, but at the same time, what my goal was, like, if I see their bodies, then I do, like, just at least a proper burial. But eventually and luckily, I saw them. And when I went back to Manila, I was actually writing something, a screenplay that I've been writing it for a couple of months, which I felt complete, but also it wasn't complete. I had this feeling I couldn't manage to explain what the term complete is. And then I realized, I think I need to be there. I myself needs to be in this material. And then what better way also is to, like, put in my experience of how I see the experience of me doing all these things. Of course, it's not just my experience, but also like people that I talked to along the way when I was there, and like things that I saw and feelings that I felt during that time. So yeah, I mean, it took a while for us to finish the film, but in a way, I'm quite happy, and even up until now, with having this interview, feels quite absurd to say the least. It's like, oh, the film is there. Oh, the film has premiered. When I actually watched the premiere, my feeling was, oh, nice. It looks like a film. I can actually do something. No, I mean, kidding aside, it's more than anything, more than making a good film. It's also, in a way, a love song to my hometown, because, like, those stories have been really, in a way, underrepresented, or in any case, sometimes stories are usually in a more tragic or melodramatic tone, and you cannot take that away because it is what it is. But in essence, from what I put in the film, or how the film is right now, it could mean that it's weird or absurd, but it actually happened. So I'm really happy and thankful to share this story to the world.
You talked about how the film was informed by your own experiences. How did you decide to focus on these three characters that are in the film now?
Yeah, I have this thing with films that tackles disaster. It's always, they always talk about the bigger thing, like the how the space is, how it's more general in essence. And I do feel also I would want to tell a story regardless of a certain situation or disaster, to focus on the familiar feeling. So, for example, this film could not have happened, let's say, in Hamburg, or like in France or Paris, but more than anything, it's the relatability. It's the universal tones of like a family, a mother and son. I focused on that because also, well, mind you, I have issues with family, so it was more easier for me to approach that kind of manner. And I've been having this, I mean, I have a weird relationship also with my hometown, and my hometown is like a definition of home. And I feel with the story of a mother and son, what is home to them. So I wanted to focus in essence of how they manage to see home or even hope and survival in the light of a tragic thing that has happened.
On the one hand, the film has this huge scope of the catastrophe. On the other hand, it's very intimate with the three characters. And it also shows in how you shot the film, this very narrow frame. How did you decide that this was the right way to shoot it?
A joke is always that we do it 4x3 because if it's wider, it's more expensive. No, but kidding aside, kidding aside, it was more of like from your questions, even basing on your questions, I would want to focus more on the character's journey, on the character's reaction, on the character's take on how to go about this certain situation, and regardless of what you see in the background or where they're actually moving in a space where tragedy and catastrophe happen. So more than anything, because the film already talks about something tragic, something big of a situation. I myself, as the filmmaker, don't want to focus more on what has happened.
You worked as an editor for a number of other directors before. You also did some short films, and I was wondering how this experience influenced you in writing and directing this film now.
Yeah, I think it has quite how to say, like, influenced me a lot, and more than anything, it prepared me to where I wanted to go as a filmmaker. With things like, for example, with editing, I've been editing for like almost 11 already, and there's a couple of features and a few filmmakers that I've been really collaborating with. I mean, like, the one that really inspired me the most, aside from other directors, is one of my directors, Calvin de la Cruz. So, like, a few years back, when I didn't have any short film in mind, he was really pushing me to do this, do that. But yes, it quite helped me a lot. And doing all the shorts in between the process of developing this feature to eventually shooting it, in a way, it formulated the kind of film I wanted to make. It actually helped. It made me I'm not confident, but it gave me this push, this certain push to push further the kind of film that you have actually watched right now. So I think it was a lucky process for me. I mean, it wasn't intentionally planned out systematically, like, oh, I need to do this. It just happened, and I'm thankful that it actually happened. Yeah.
Another thing that I found remarkable in the film is how strong the actors and the performances are. So I was wondering, how did you find the actors, how did you choose them, and how did you work with them on set?
It's nice to hear that the actors gets commended in this film, because, like, during the casting process, it was very tedious in a way, and to the point there were also like things that even the people in the production were not confident about, like me deciding this set. The idea for the casting was more of like to work with different generations of actors. In essence, of course, it was just in my head, and it was always a wish that I wanted to have. But I mean, you can never get that just because this is my first feature. I mean, in terms of like experience, like if I get something that's very popular or veteran, I mean, they wouldn't say yes that easy. But I don't know what happened. They said yes. Like with the mother role, Norma. In terms of the generation, she's veteran. She's been doing films from classic films that I really adore and get inspired with. You have Miguel, who's played by Daniel Padilla. In a way, in terms of the generation, he's the current actor, like a very popular one. Does all these blockbuster stuff, and you wouldn't actually think that he would accept something this kind of a project, but he did. Mainly also because that the film actually is close to his heart. He is actually from the place and he knows the dialect. So there's this connection, minus all these generational stuff. There's this connection with the place. And you have this very raw and young actress who's Andrea, played by Ransford, who does not have any background with acting. This is her first big role. Going back to what I said, Rans who had I chose her just because I saw something in her, but I'm not sure if she could actually play the role and could have collaborated this freely with the two actors, because the two one have more experience. But I was pushing for it. People in the production were like, "Are you really sure?" Blah blah blah. But then again, I mean, it worked in a way. The essence of like their styles in terms of actings, in terms of generation, actually worked quite hand in hand, and it didn't like this actress did not like overtake in terms of scenes. And I think it's good to have these experiment in terms of the balance.
Thank you so much, Carlo, for taking the time and for presenting your film here, and goodbye.
Thank you very much as well.